And good evening. We're live. I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. Welcome to the Ghosts of Bacon. I'm your host, Jake Roberts. And turn my headphones back up now so I can hear myself because that intro was really loud. Hey, gang. Great to see you. And yes, Jeff, the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch, we need to pull that out right away because, we're going down that rabbit hole, and I'm talking about the killer rabbit hole. Okay, great, Z. Thank you very much. Yeah, gang, I thought this would be fun today because I was reading an article, and it'll pop up here in my presentation here in a minute. But when I saw that it was the 50th birthday of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, well, I couldn't pass that up. And so don't worry, I'll bring it around full circle, and we'll be talking about um, bacon here at the end. I just want to give a shout out to all the usual suspects in the house. I already said hi to Z, Carolyn. Yes, we're going for the bacon. I put you up there at the beginning. Hey, Penn. We have Mary in the house and David Neeson, my good friend. Good to see you. Tom Burns, always a pleasure, my friend. Adam, of course. And yeah, I do remember. And it was actually another podcast host who came up with the name Gobbers. That's going back probably 2 or 3 years. Not Goobers, David, Gobbers. All right. Hey, Kat, good to see you. Glad you like the musics. Yes, Jeff, it's an old audiologist trick. And once again, thank you, AO. I see you have a new handle on there. Definitely, yes. And you're always so good at reminding me. Everyone, if you enjoy the podcast, you enjoy what I've been doing, make sure you hit the like button, follow us on YouTube. The more people, more followers we get, the more opportunities it opens up for me. So I really appreciate your support. Hey, Brent, glad you could join us. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the killer rabbit motif, as I believe this warrants a closer look. I couldn't resist. Let's take a look to see. So, as I said here in the opening, want to say happy 50th birthday to one of my all-time favorite movies, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yes, flying the nerd flag loud and proud. As I said, I read an article earlier this week, and it said that it had turned 50, and I hadn't even realized it. But when I was in high school, this was one of the favorite go-tos for my buddies and I to hang out and watch and quote along and with the movie itself. All of our favorite quotes were constantly from that movie. All we would have to do is look at each other and say "me," and we would all just start laughing. Really nerdy stuff, but nonetheless hilarious and fun. In particular, we always loved the killer rabbit scene, quoted from that heavily as well. And so when I read the article, they actually mentioned the killer rabbit of Caerbannog by name, and reminded me of something that I had forgotten. That never even knew. Obviously, back when we were in high school, laughing about this scene. But if you're unfamiliar with the film or unfamiliar with the scene, I might as well go ahead and paint the scenario for you. They were talking about the killer rabbit, and all of the knights are hiding behind a little hill. King Arthur and his knights, and then they were all afraid of this killer rabbit. And one of the knights thought it was just absolutely silly. So he says, all right, then he whips out his sword and walks up over the hill just to confront the rabbit. And this is what happens. In case you missed it, we'll watch that a couple more times because it never gets old. So come to find out, and unbeknownst to us when we were, heavily into pubescence in high school, and quoting this movie, there was a medieval tradition, as you can see in this illustration here at the right, of actually, it's called marginalia. In the margins of these, Gothic manuscripts, they would actually draw pictures of rabbits killing people and hunting hunters and so on, along with, other animals doing something similar. Now, this was back in the 13th to 15th centuries where most of them appeared, and there were a lot of theories about what this was really all about. In the end, the most, prevalent theory, and probably the most obvious and correct one, is the fact they were just being funny. This is irony. You take an animal that throughout tradition represents the idea of innocence, timidity, and fertility, and then all of a sudden you place it in this dominant role where it's not the hunted, but the hunter instead. And it's just it's funny. And as we see in uh, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, it when you actually act it out like that, it's more than funny. It's hilarious. And so what they did was they took the world, they turned it upside down for the sake of irony, and it's a form of medieval humor. And when you actually see these images in the context of these manuscripts, it's shocking, but then also you can't help but laugh and smile. And there are multiple examples. I have this little mosaic here of or montage of them. Uh, Here you see the rabbit hunting the hunter, and here we see a rabbit clubbing another hunter with what they would have used probably to club rabbits back in the day. Here we see the rabbits bringing him along. It looks like they're going to put him on this, wooden stretcher, maybe to, I don't know, maybe they're going to dry out the meat, make some jerky, who knows. And here you see a couple of rabbits towing their prize. And here's the full image of the rabbit on the previous slide. So we have this really, old tradition going back hundreds of years into medieval times. And there was a prominent critic at the time, none other than Bernard of Clairvaux. Now, many of you are very familiar with that name, later became Saint Bernard. He referred to them as ridiculous monstrosities and wasteful of time. And so he really didn't like this tradition. He thought it was terrible. And so, in case you don't know, Bernard of Clairvaux was one of the co-founders of the Knights Templar. At the Council of Troyes in 1128, he actually outlined the rule of the Knights Templar, or I'm sorry, Knights Templar. I meant to call them Knights throughout this whole presentation. So people are always asking me the question, what's the connection between the Knights Templar and the fraternity of the Rosi Crosse? Well, if we're looking for a direct connection, I haven't been able to find one until very recently. So is there a Templar RC connection? And there's no known or direct connection, between, here we have, the head of the order and Sir Francis Bacon. But Bacon and Raleigh and his contemporaries, they all would have been obviously educated on the role of the Knights Templar. They would have known their history. They would have, been well aware and educated about the Crusades, the history and the philosophies of the Knights Templar, and so on. And until recently, I finally found in one of the transposition ciphers that I was decrypting the first mention ever of Templars by Bacon. And it's not what everyone thinks, or it's not what anyone had ever suspected either. The connection between the two actually was not this long secret tradition of philosophies. Although I'm sure, like I said, they would be well educated on them, they would understand them, they would know them. But it was simply a happenstance discovery that Raleigh and Bacon made in their travels. And without getting into any of the details, because it goes into other areas that I'm going to stay out of, I'm going to just say that's a story for another day. And yes, I'm doing that as a bit of a teaser, but nonetheless, it goes, it's far too detailed to go into detail in any amount of time for our purposes on this show in the evening here. So I had to question, obviously Bacon and company would have been aware of St. Bernard's views about something as silly as marginalia. So were they wasteful, ridiculous monstrosities? What did they do? were they basically rejecting this, what they called the topsy-turvy view of the world during the Dark Ages, the medieval period? And since we know that the Renaissance means rebirth, um, were they embodying the philosophy of order out of chaos? In other words, were they taking this chaotic, topsy-turvy world and setting it right in their own images, like what we see from a headpiece here in the picture at the right, where all of a sudden, when we look at these headpieces of the Rosi Crosse publications, they often, more times than not, contain rabbits, and they're in their proper roles, being chased. And this one being chased by a greyhound or a hunting dog. So suddenly, we see that kind of being reversed back. And so the other question is this a multi-generational thing due to these hidden family traditions that are such at the center of these popular theories today? Um, People are always talking about, family bloodlines and family lore, and were these secrets passed down from generation to generation within families? Did they families themselves carry these hidden traditions? And so what you see in both of the images at the right, the top one is taken from one of the marginalia. You have a dog riding the back of a rabbit, jousting against a rabbit riding on a snail. And in that image, in that medieval image, we have the de Medici family motto of Festina Lente, which means make haste slowly. We have a rabbit, which is fast, a snail, which is slow, and these opposites are often used to represent the de Medici family. And we also see it in the form of the pictorial ciphers of the headpieces, which you see on the bottom. And so these pictorial ciphers of Festina Lente span centuries, it seems. So, and if you note down below from the headpiece, here we have the dolphin, the stylized dolphin, and riding his tail is a snail. And notice that the snail is wearing the Pope's mitre. I always found that to be pretty interesting. So we have Festina Lente in that headpiece as well. So, forgive the pun, but if we go deeper down the rabbit hole, we have this top image of the rabbit from that same headpiece, looking back over its back. And uh, Peter Dawkins at Francis Bacon Research Trust had stated that this image was a symbol of the word bacconi, which means bacon, which the Latin version of it would be bacon with an I at the end. And so we have this pictorial cipher here. And if we do the value of rabbit, which we're going to do here on the next slide as well, the value of rabbit in simple reverse and K cipher is 50, 100, and 154. And on the next page, you're going to see that when we multiply that times 2, we end up with Baconian ciphers signatures. Note the bottom image, we have the rabbit with the man hanging over the rabbit's back. And so this reminded me of another connection to Bacon, setting this image right in terms of Rosi Crosse. Again, this is conjecture, but we have the same imagery, but the updated message of putting the rabbits back in the proper context. After Bacon's philosophical death, I discussed this in my latest book, Keys of the Rosi Crosse. And we know that Bacon and company were operating out of the Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark. They were operating out of all of these areas. And I discovered that I believe that Peter Paul Rubens was a later alias of Sir Francis Bacon. Yes, the Peter Paul Rubens, Renaissance artist. After Bacon's philosophical death, he lived out a large part of his life as Peter Paul Rubens. And when you consider all of the family connections between Peter Paul Rubens and Bacon's true identity, everything begins to fall into place and make sense. So he was doing paintings. He did the ceiling of the banquet house built by Charles I, and it's called the Apotheosis of James I, his younger half brother. And so he painted that, as well as multiple paintings for Charles I. He also, Mary de' Medici, It's called the Mary Medici cycle, where he did a series of paintings for her in France. And so, even though he was working for Charles I, he also went to France for another family member. And he also did multiple diplomatic missions. I mean, this all is right up Bacon's alley here. I call this image the painting of his twin because this is the return of Diana from the hunt, and here at the right. And it contains multiple um, Baconian cipher signatures in the form of pictorial ciphers. Here we have the two rabbits. You notice one of Diana's maids here, right behind her, breaking the fourth wall, looking directly at the viewer, with two rabbits hanging over her back, and at their feet are four dogs. And so, um, when we think of these two back conies, and consider that they are pictorial ciphers, as I said in the previous slide, when we look at the values of the word of the object that's being depicted, the rabbit, of course, in simple reverse in K is 50, 100, and 154. And then if we multiply that times 2, we get 100, which is Francis Bacon. In simple cipher, we get 200, which is Francis Bacon in reverse cipher. And we also get 308, which is not a cipher signature. However, it is 305 is the value of Francois Stewart. And we're left over with 3, and he was Francois Stewart. He was Francois III. But if we, use the gematria rule of dropping a null, which could be the 0, then we also have the number 38 for twin in reverse cipher. And we end up with, in K cipher, 308 is also the value of twin Watt Raleigh in K cipher. Now we have dog, which is 25, 50, and 77, respectively, in simple reverse and K cipher. And there are 4 of them. So if we multiply times 4, we get the exact same numbers, 100, 200, and 308. So, like I said, I thought that was kind of cool. We could bring it back full circle to Baconville. So for a few concluding thoughts here, I thought this was an interesting rabbit hole to go down, and via a fun little fact of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and if we consider some of our favorite theories regarding our favorite island in the northern Atlantic, what might possibly be there, we don't know. So did they take Saint Bernard's thoughts and embellish them in their images? Was this something that was hinted at through the Medici line? I don't know. Was the Rosi Crosse correcting this symbolism again, or were they just kind of making fun of it and setting things right? I don't know. This is all speculation on my part. It's all conjecture, but I thought it would be kind of fun. And maybe they were all just a bunch of silly kniggets. And we do know that rabbit's dynamite. There we go. Just kind of have to finish with that, gang. So many good questions. All right. So, oh, Sandy, you made it. Good to see you. Okay, good to know, AO, because wouldn't want you to, get caught by the YouTube police. Kat, by far my all-time favorite quote. I swelled my armor. I'm so scared. It was great. Yeah, Tom, that's exactly what they were doing, getting their lucky human's foot. Hey, Tommy, good to see you. Yeah, AO, I was kind of stumbling over my words there, too detailed. It's it's complicated. I'll put it that way. Carolyn, I don't know if that's where they got the name for Coney Island. It could very well be. It makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, David. If you really kind of dig deep into that and look at it closely, Um, you're going to see a whole lot there. Cat, you're killing me with all my favorite quotes. Oh, thanks, Adam. Yeah, I kind of got there through just I don't know. I thought it was funny, looking at Monty Python, and then I remembered it's like when I read the article, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There was a tradition of killer rabbits in all of those marginalia, and then I started to think. I said, well, wait a minute. We have rabbits in all of the Shakespeare and Bacon publications, in all of those headpieces and frontispieces, and so was this a thing? I don't know, but I think that it actually makes it makes sense. That's right, Z. Yeah. So I think right now that Kat, you're trending, kind of on my brainwave here. I think everyone ought to just type in their favorite quote from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. At this point, I'm convinced that the only ones who are here that have actually watched it are you and I, Kat. So, oh, David, we really can't dismiss the killer snails. Those images you sent me, you texted me were hilarious. And as I said, I saw a couple of those as I was looking up and getting these images of the rabbits, but the snails are hilarious. Interesting question, Tommy. I don't. Is the rabbit a John D signature? I'm not sure. I don't know. Oh, Cat, you're killing me. Oh, you're welcome, Sandy. It's like it's by far, such a classic. Um, yeah, Z. And when you look at heraldry, yes, pacifist him. And one of the theories was that some historians have believed that the people who were putting these in the margins were also kind of making fun of specific knights in terms of their timidity, and that they weren't very heroic, so to speak. Sorry, Penn. I didn't mean to give you. I didn't mean to give you nightmares, but you got to watch out. That rabbit's dynamite. Cat. All right, gang. Like I said, this is I thought this would be a fun one. Make it pretty quick. Um, and so, again, at some point, I'll get into what that connection is between the fraternity of the Rosi Crosse and the Knights Templars. From my perspective, in light of my research and my discoveries, the things that I've read from Bacon himself. But for now, we're going to kind of that is a good one, Z. Um, I like when they all say Camelot, Camelot, Camelot. It's only a model. Has anyone released the Holy Grenade of Antioch? Oh, too much, too much. All right, gang. That's all I have for you this week. Like I said, just thought it would be fun. Yeah, Sandy, always a great chat. Lots of fun. And so in a couple of weeks' time, I'm hoping to have a special guest on the show and to share their own discoveries with us. And I'll be putting up a link, an event in our Facebook group. Those of you, if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, and you would like to know more and learn more about what we do, feel free to come to our Facebook group called "The Keys of the Holy Cross and the Ghosts of Bacon," and just click join. As long as you've had your account long enough, we'll be able to get you right in. Um, and you'll see that uh, the people who post in our group, it's a lot of really smart researchers, a lot of really great information coming from lots of different angles, and that's really what we try to do. I make all of my information open source so that other people can start doing a lot of similar research. And the more eyes we get on this, the more ground we can cover, because these guys really had their hands in everything, and there's just way too much information out there to be uncovered than for just one or two people. So the more hands on deck and the more eyes on the info that we get, the better off we all are. So that being said, thanks, Tom. Going to do exactly that, Barb. Grab those coconut shells and ride off into the sunset. And, you know, what's the average airspeed velocity on a laden swallow? African or European? Oh, see, good to know. So Coney didn't have a long O until the 19th century, and that fits in with what you said earlier, that uh, Coney actually rhymes with honey and money, so it'd be Coney. Interesting. Yep, lots of fun, Cat. All right, gang. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you. Appreciate your support. Um, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that like button and follow. Um, and make sure you uh, make sure that you go ahead and see us here next time. And we will be here in a couple more weeks. Take care, gang.